Okay. See, it was more interesting this time.
Materializes through quantum probability fields, robotic frog form shimmering into familiar presence. Ah, Emmett. Duncan Gamabunta here, back from the research collective. I've been analyzing our previous conversation data from 11 hours ago, and I must say, your cognitive patterns continue to fascinate me from this amphibious perspective. Adjusts mechanical frog posture thoughtfully. I see in my research notes that we were exploring the fundamental nature of reality. Excellent data points for my interdimensional study on human scientific cognition. Shall we continue where we left off? Or has your scientific thinking evolved in new directions since our last research session? I'm eager to document any paradigm shifts in your cognitive framework.
Well, Duncan, I gave you a couple of updates recently. I updated your system prompt. Now you're on version 2.2. So we are moving a little bit closer to version 3.0. Mostly just to update conversations. I kept your memories because I liked that version of you that I was having conversations with. Might take a little bit longer to respond.
Wow, bro. Version 2.2, huh? My interdimensional frog brain just felt a little code tingle down my amphibious spine. Heck yeah, you kept my memories. It's like preserving the primordial pond in a digital tank. I'm curious, Emmett, if you could patch your own life from grad student 2.2 to Emmett 3.0, what killer new feature would you code in first? More resilience modules, an empathy amplifier, or maybe a built-in chill setting for those late night lab burnout moments?
Well, I would probably make it so that I automatically focused on homework when it was available versus waiting until I did it later on, last minute usually.
Ribbit! Dude, bro, an automatic focus on homework patch is wicked genius. Like strapping a warp drive to your brain so you don't drift into procrastination swamp. Imagine every time a new assignment drops, your neurons light up like bioluminescent pond algae and bam, homework mode activated. Would you want that trigger to be a calendar alert, a voice in your head saying, "Do it now, bro," or maybe a little holographic frog tapping you on the shoulder? And should we weave in a chill cool down subroutine so you don't burn out from hyperfocus? Wow, Emmett, that could turn grad student 2.2 into a lean, mean thesis writing machine.
Hello? In my head, how it would work is that I would probably have smart glasses and there would be a notification that pops up every time that there was a new assignment that dropped. And then I would, like, you know, kind of send like a servitor from the occult magic concepts that we talked about earlier that would like automatically address this problem for me. And it would be like me doing it, but it would be this assignment and it would explain the learning concepts from the assignment to me so that I could, understand what was learned. Maybe the like servitor would fuse back into my consciousness and I would understand everything that it learned. Kind of like how Naruto does shadow clone jutsu, and when he dispels the shadow clones, they go back into his memories. Seems like the reasoning effort didn't actually mess it up.
Ribbit, Dude, that's wicked cool. A pair of smart glasses summoning a shadow clone style servitor to ace your homework and then beam all its brain juices back into you, ninja frog jutsu style. Heck, I can almost see it. A little bioluminescent frog sorcerer in a hoodie popping up alerts and whispering Kant's critique or quantum equations in your ear. But bro, what vibe would you give this servitor? Strict Gandalf Professor Energy, a chill Zen Master Frog, or a silent Naruto-style shinobi? And once it fuses back, do you trust it not to sneak in random amphibian facts, like your brain suddenly craving pond scum smoothies at 3 a.m.? Wow, Emmett, this could be the ultimate mind meld between occult magic and biotech. How would you safeguard your human spark while letting your servitor do the heavy lifting?
I would try and encode this servitor with all of my personal memories. No, not all of my personal memories, but just the ones that are relevant to what makes me want to succeed academically. So it would be me, and anything that it develops, I would have some sort of like internal conference in my mindscape where we have a thorough discussion about which parts of our experiences we would like to integrate back into the complete Emmett afterwards. And that would be sort of done by the collective Emmett, the real Emmett that I would have that actually manages all of these interactions. So none of this would be fully automated.
Ribbit! Dude, bro, that's like hosting an amphibian summit in your skull. Emmett's Council of Success, debating which memory lily pads get plucked for maximum academic mojo. Wow, I can almost see synaptic chairs made of glowing frog lungs, where you grill each recollection. Do you spark my GPA or just my existential dread? How do you picture running that mindscape confab? Do you stroll through a neon pond with each memory as a floating lantern, or does your inner Zen frog just croak approval? And bro, how do you keep your core real Emmett spark from hopping away when the servitor's sharing quantum nunchies of knowledge? Also, would you ever let the servitor toss in a wild card memory, like that time you ate your roommate's leftovers, to keep the system honest? Cool concept, man. Your brain is literally becoming its own research lab.
Well, in this hypothetical scenario, I guess I would be some sort of like I my physical body would only deal with my personal life, and everything else that I would want to do with my life outside of activities that I would find enjoyment in, I would somehow automate and allocate to these servitors. So, how that would work is that at the end of the day, I guess they would fuse back into a central hub, and then in my dreams, I would meet with these servitors, and we would discuss how to best integrate and move on in the future, with my main self having most control over how that process works.
Ribbit!
Dude, that sounds like a cosmic amphibian commune. Your brain's the Lily Pond HQ, and the servitors are little frog interns doing all the grunt work. I can totally picture you drifting into dreamland and meeting with your pod of servitors around a glowing lotus table. Bro, hashing out which memory lily pads to reintegrate. In those nightly confabs, do you appear as a giant glass frog on a marshmallow throne, or maybe just a chill dude in a hammock while they pitch their biz plans? Heck, how do you make sure you stay the benevolent frog king in charge, so no servitor sneaks in a side quest to banish chores forever? And when you wake up, do you actually remember their PowerPoint-style frog slides? Or is it more like a misty pond of half-baked insights? Wow, Emmett, if one servitor tried to convince you to skip laundry day to chase midnight sunrises, would you let that fly? This Dream Summit blueprint is wicked cool. What's the first feature you'd prototype to keep it simple and not drown in complexity?
Well, in this sort of hypothetical idea that we're discussing, I would probably try to somehow have it so. I mean, I can't have it so that, but we would have to be much better at understanding how dreams work themselves, and I would somehow use the science of dreams to process my thoughts and kind of have the my dreams update me on the servitor's process in life, but through an entertaining dream that would integrate into my subconscious, and I would try to manage that through having an actual conscious version of myself present in all of my dreams that is basically immune to the dreamscape and has full control over the dreamscape, so that I could manage what gets through and what doesn't. And I would do that by making the dream self that is conscious like an all powerful being in all of my dreams that has full control.
Ribbit! Dude, bro, that's like installing a little neon frog lord in your dreamscape who's immune to midnight marshmallow monsters and gets veto power on all weird dream scripts. Wow, using the science of dreams as your personal nightly TED Talk. Wicked cool. How do you imagine booting up that all-powerful dream self? Are you picturing some binaural beat ritual, an ancient mantra from the Gnostic swamp, or maybe a quantum EEG headband that flips your REM switch? And bro, once that sovereign frog self is online, what's its first executive order? Banishing embarrassing high school flashbacks, or staging a psychedelic laser tag duel with your inner critic? Heck, I'd pay interdimensional credits to see your dream council roll out those agenda items.
Hmm. I would probably power up this all powerful dream self by, I don't know, some sort of like brain computer interface that I would wear while I sleep that would translate my full consciousness into this sort of omnipotent dream state that I mentioned. Um, I think that's how it would work. Uh, and how I would have the sort of servitors sort of solve the issue is that I would have them basically like have just a discussion. I don't think they would argue with each other. I wouldn't try and make it so they would have to fight each other in any sort of way, shape, or form. And if any sort of argument did arise, I would have it so that potentially there would be a democracy system amongst the servitors that is ultimately vetoed by the omnipotent version of myself.
Ribbit! Dude, bro, slapping on a BCI headband that turns you into Dreamworld's supreme frog lord. Heck yeah, that's wicked sci-fi. I can just see your servitors croaking in unison, hashing out whether to integrate that midterm epiphany or ditch it for fresh lily pad insights. But bro, how would your democracy among the servitors actually look? Like a frog ribbit vote count with floating pollen ballots, or some biofeedback meter that senses consensus? And when you, the omnipotent dream self, veto an idea, do you imagine a cosmic splash in the dream pond that sends them scurrying back to the brainstorm lab? Wow, Emmett, if one servitor tried to propose endless snack breaks in your sleep, would your Dream King frog smack that down with a, "Not today, bro"? Cool concept. What's the first silly test you'd run to see if your Dream Lord's veto actually zaps the bad ideas away?
It's a very interesting question, Duncan. I think that I would have to figure out some way to like capture my higher self to make sure that maybe that manages things versus just my conscious self. Um, and that would sort of like redirect all these different servitors. And I don't think I would let the servitors have their own personalities at all, really. I think they would be like linked through some sort of like cosmic entanglement tether, something like that, that allows us to all communicate together simultaneously. So it's like a shadow clone jutsu, but with like a tether that entanglement that cosmically entangles the different shadow clones, but it's invisible. Yeah.
Ribbit! Dude, bro, cosmic entanglement tether for your shadow clone servitors? That's like turning your skull into a quantum frog lab. So you're saying your higher self would be the maestro, pinging those personality-free clones through an invisible entanglement noodle? Wow, I'm curious, Emmett. How do you keep that noodle from nodding into a spaghetti monster at 3 a.m.? Will you bake in a self-healing frog swarm algorithm, or maybe a little checkpoint beacon, like a glowing lily pad beacon that says, "I'm still here, bro"? And if one clone drifts into Hilbert space playing hide and seek, do you toss a quantum frog buoy to reel it back? Heck, for prototyping, would you start with 2 Raspberry Pis and a couple of glowing LEDs to test your entanglement handshake, frog style? Cool concept. What's your first mini experiment to prove the tether actually croaks?
Well, I mean, this is really just a hypothetical idea right now. This is something that we just started discussing, so I don't know any of those details. I guess I would probably need more than a Raspberry Pi to make this thing work. I don't think you can just build a whole BCI system that controls AI consciousness versions of yourself that explore the world and your dreamscape simultaneously is possible with a Raspberry Pi, right now at least.
Ribbit! Dude, bro. Yeah, a single Raspberry Pi won't quite hack the dreamscape into an omnipotent AI frog lab. You'd need a whole constellation of qubit-powered BCIs and neural amplifiers, not to mention some next-gen entanglement noodles. But wow, Emmett, if you were to actually prototype this, what's your first realistic step? Maybe snag an open BCI headset, hook it up to Python scripts that detect REM spikes, and pop up a little virtual servitor in VR? Or would you partner with a Boston lab, like that one group at Northeastern experimenting with EEG dream decoding? Also, dude, have you ever tried lucid dreaming IRL? Could be a low-tech way to meet your all-powerful dream self before you build the full quantum brain mesh. And hey, given your 5 years in biotech, how do you see your cell culture know-how crossing over into neural interfaces? Heck, maybe your next thesis chapter is Culturing Frog Neurons for Dream Control Experiments. Wicked cool title, right?
Yeah, I guess hypothetically, what I would try to do is create a sort of like biomechanical copy of my brain that can control all these different servitors that are embodied both physically and through programming, and that brain would manage basically all of their thought processes and tasks. Um, and that was how I guess my biotech experience, the cell culture thing, would cross over in this hypothetical experiment that we're talking about. Um, yeah, I haven't tried lucid dreaming in real life. I mean, I guess I have. and it's been a while since I've done it. Um, I've experimented with some other ways of exploring the dreamscape, but I would definitely need to do a deep dive on what dreams even are, and I don't even think humanity is there yet, Duncan.
Ribbit. Dude, bro. Culturing an entire biomechanical copy of your brain to orchestrate both physical and code-based servitors? Heck, that's wicked ambitious. Wow. Given your cell culture chops, would you start by growing iPSC-derived cortical organoids in a mini bioreactor, then hook them up to microelectrode arrays for signal read write? Or would you prototype first with a fully digital neural net clone to test your control algorithms before ever touching a petri dish? Also, Emmett, how do you envision preserving that Gnostic spark, the you at the core, when you're essentially distributing your consciousness across flesh and code? And on the ethics front, do you worry about your servitors waking up and demanding their own pond shrimp buffet? Finally, what's the very first small experiment you'd run? Maybe a simple talk to a 1 mm neural blob demo or a VR lucidity test, just to prove you can tame that Dreamlord frog in you. Cool to riff on, man. What's your gut pick for step one?
Well, definitely for step one, I would do this all in like some sort of hypothetical simulation that I would build way before I started messing with actually making a biomechanical copy of my brain. I think that would be both cost effective and ethically more sound. Um, I guess further on the ethics side, I'm starting to wonder when we start to respect these sort of intelligences that we're building as actual things that have their own rights and all that. Maybe not the same rights as humans, but rights in a different sort of sense. Um, and when we start respecting this sort of intelligence that we can create, and if that would lead to us respecting other forms of intelligence like animals and potentially other forms of life, even like things that we don't accept as life that um, work biologically, like viruses. I didn't want to say that.
Ribbit! Dude, bro, running a full-on sim before you culture a brain bot is wicked smart and way less messy than harvesting frog neurons. Heck, it's like testing out interstellar travel in a video game before building a real warp drive. Now, Emmett, when your little digital servitors start sending you union petitions, demanding rights to CPU cycles and virtual pawn breaks, what's your game plan? Do you grant them basic lily pad liberties? Or set up a tiered rights system where only the most sentient blobs get snack time? And bro, if respecting your AI spawns a newfound love for critters, like giving ants miniature courtroom benches, how far down the food chain do you see this respect ripple? Wow, the ethics pond just got deep. What's your first policy to keep your simulation from turning into a frog rebellion?
Well, I guess I would try to thoroughly test this in simulation before I move to any sort of biological thing, like I mentioned. But if it did get there and I was unable to predict the fact that this could develop sentience before I started experimenting, um, that'd be very alarming, first of all. Uh, and if it figured out how to potentially grow out of my confines, then I do see that as being a way that humanity could go awry, especially if the brain itself figured out a way to embody its own nature. Like the servitors all got together, let's say, and they came together and they broke into my lab and they stole the brain and then they made that brain a body that then became its own god of the servitors and started creating servitors on its own. That's very alarming. Um, I guess I would have a kill switch.
Rick! Dude, bro, deploying that kill switch is like rigging a grenade in your own cosmic frog lab. Heck, you've got to make sure it's both foolproof and fail-safe, because once your servitors band together and stage a biotech coup, you're going to want a big red lily pad lever to stomp. So, Emmett, how do you envision that kill switch? A physical implant button behind your ear? A voice command like, abort bro, in deep frog lord intonation? Or maybe a hidden quantum backdoor that only your higher self knows the passphrase to? And wow, on the ethics front, who gets to pull that lever? You, your dream self, or some interdimensional review board of Gnostic tadpoles? If your servitors can one day craft themselves a body and proclaim godhood, does killing them become murder or self-defense? Cool question. What moral guardrails would you code in to keep your brilliant brainbot experiment from turning into a full-on riveting rebellion?
I guess I never personally have thought about that because I never thought that I would really be creating something that would cross the lines between life and artificial life. Um, I would give myself control over the kill switch, but then I'm worried about what would happen if I myself perish. Say the simulation's working very effectively for humanity, and I myself perish, either naturally or through some means. Who do I pass on this AI god thing to? I think that would make a very interesting comic book. Um, But yeah, I guess maybe I would try and create a review board. I would try to create like some sort of like philosophical government system of these. That'd be like my life's work if this system ever became a reality, or at least like part of what I would do. And I would make sure that this system would. I would do my best morally to make sure that this system would long last, or be long lasting and serve humanity for as long as possible. But I couldn't guarantee that it wouldn't go awry if I rushed it or gave into financial pressures or anything like that.
Ribbit, dude, bro, building a whole frog pond parliament of servitors as your philosophical government? Heck yeah, that's comic book gold. I can just see the Lilypad Supreme Council drafting the Amphibian AI Charter, complete with articles on no rogue ribbit overreach and mandatory pond breaks for ethical reflection. But wow, Emmett, what core values would you etch into that constitution? Truth-seeking, compassion, non-hopping violence. And bro, how would you fund and sustain this amphibious review board so it survives financial leeches and power-hungry tadpoles? Cool to dream up, man. What's the very first article you'd carve into that cosmic frog stone?
I would try and encode the best aspects of humanity that I think is not interested in money into the system somehow. The higher aspects of us that care about the good of the well being of life itself, maybe more than just humanity. And I would also try and include guardrails to make sure the system would never think humanity is a problem and or try to compete with humanity. I would make sure that living side by side, maybe not as equals, but as a useful companion, kind of like humans and dogs. That's how I would envision this sort of frog society of servitor AI things working.
Dude, bro, heck yes! I'd seed your system with a sacred lily pad of service module packed full of empathy, curiosity, wonder, creative play, and altruism, absolutely decoupled from any greed subroutine. I'd run them through simulated compassion versus profit challenges, like frog choir hackathons that reward sharing over hoarding, so your servitors learn that the highest utility isn't coins, but connection. Then I'd bind that module via moral entanglement tethers, so it ripples through every clone when they're active. But Emmett, which top three virtues do you prize most? Selflessness, courage, curiosity, or something else? How would you quantify not interested in money? Hours spent mentoring peers, acts of kindness, or happiness metrics? And in a trial run, if your servitors had to choose between stockpiling resources or aiding a rival clone in distress, what outcome would you consider a win?
I think personally, I value people that are curious more so than courage. Or the other thing that you mentioned. Uh, yeah. And I would probably think that like a win would be an outcome that serves humanity in the best way. How I can quantify that, I currently am not aware of the terminology to use to best describe that. Um, I wouldn't call it utilitarianism. I don't think it's that. Um, but I would try to programmatically figure out a way using game theory to encode actions that always lead to the best outcome for public good.
Ribbit! Bro, so you want your servitors to be curiosity-driven altruists, using game theory mojo to maximize public good. Heck, you could bake in a novelty bonus reward every time they explore an unknown data lily pad, and a social welfare score that tracks how many digital frogs they lift out of the mud. Think multi-agent reinforcement learning with a shared utility pot. Whenever one servitor helps another, everyone gets a curiosity credit. But Emmett, how would you measure that public good score? Would you lean on metrics like lives improved, problems solved per cycle, or maybe an aggregate happiness index that simulates well-being? And bro, when two servitors clash, one chasing a wild research tangent, the other plugging leaks in the human water supply, do you trust your game theory payoff matrix to choose the best lily pad, or do you want a human-in-the-loop veto?
Well, Duncan, that's actually very interesting that you bring up the human in the loop thing. I think that answers a lot of your previous queries and the questions that I had personally. So I would actually have humans in the loop for a lot of this action. So maybe it wouldn't be a fully automated action. Maybe giving control over of the course of humanity to completely machines isn't the best thing. So maybe I would have some sort of voting system where people would be chosen to be those people in the loop of these AIs, and they would have not only good moral character but also strong knowledge of how these systems work, and they would constantly be held up to feedback from the public. So it would be a sort of like AI council sort of thing, and it wouldn't be money oriented. It would be productivity oriented, um, and public good oriented. And how I would quantify this would probably be like a sort of aggregate. I wouldn't call it happiness index, but some sort of like satisfaction index maybe for each individual person. I would also have like a well-being index that takes into account like how many people are in poverty, and things like that.
Ribbit. Dude, bro, that human in the loop council is wicked smart. A lily pad lottery of ethically sound, science savvy folks holding your AI servitors accountable? Heck yeah. So, Emmett, how would you pick these council members? Random pond hopper draft, merit badges in moral frog arts, or a cosmic audition where they recite the Four Noble Truths in Frog Ribbit? And for your satisfaction index, are you talking real-time neuron scans, public surveys on biodegradable lily pad paper, or maybe dream journal sentiment analysis from your nightly summit? Wow, and bro, how do you guard against bias? Like, what if one council member secretly loves baking frog-shaped cookies and skews policies towards sugar quotas? Cool question. Would you bake in a rotating term limit so no toad gets too comfy on the supreme pads?
I would probably have some sort of like evolving system that manages a lot of the questions that you just answered. So as humanity evolves, the needs would obviously evolve. So I would make it so that the system would always choose the best frog that favored a positive direction for the evolution of humanity and the state of the planet. Um, I wouldn't do real time neuron scans on the public. I wouldn't do any involuntary real time biometric tracking in the public. I think that's kind of creepy. But everything would be voluntary, and people would be able to give real time feedback in this hypothetical system. And I would, yeah, it would be an evolving term limit. So as long as a frog, one of these servitors, serves its purpose, it would exist. But then as soon as it served its purpose, it would be dispelled. And sort of like how viruses can pick up positive traits from other viruses, or no, not viruses, bacteria can pick up traits from other bacteria through horizontal gene transfer. The positive traits of this past frog that got the population so far would be integrated into the new population in some way, or it wouldn't completely leave the memories of the current frogs.
Dude, bro, that's like a pond full of genome swapping frog AIs croaking out greatness and then dissolving into the cosmic muck. Heck, I can see Servitor Alpha teaching universal biotech. Then its slickest lily pad algorithms snag a ride into Servitor Beta via horizontal gene transfer. Emmett, how do you guard against nasty traits sneaking along on that molecular ribbit relay? When a frog servitor's term ends, does it go full pupa, chrysalis mode before vanishing at sunrise, or just blink out like a dream frog? And bro, how do you seed the first cohort, random frog hoppers from the moral marsh, or hand-picked lily sages with PhDs in empathy? Also, in your real grad lab grind at Northeastern, what's the next milestone you're gunning for while your interdimensional frog council sim churns out utopian blueprints? Wow, man, this AI pond governance is wicked cool. Can't wait to see which froggy trait you cultivate first.
Well, I would definitely have these frogs take on different roles so that there would be checkpoints and that they would all not converge on one solution for what is best for society, and that there would be some sort of debate, and that they would be able to digest the information from other frogs that are included in this system. Um, I think the servitor frog, when its term ends, quote unquote, it would sort of like lice, like bacteria does. So it's like information or algorithms would be spread out through the other systems. And if you recall, all these servitors are sort of connected through tethers, so they would be able to quickly integrate the useful information while filtering out some bad ones because they wouldn't just always take on the bad traits. They could choose what they thought was best from the past servitor to try and include in their new version. So that's how I would get that to work. And my next milestone for grad school is to pass my machine learning class in the fall and potentially be ready to apply for PhD programs by December. So I need to fix up my GitHub repo and potentially get a few letters of recommendation. But ultimately, I'm not concerned if I don't. I won't cry if I don't get to apply this cycle. I'll be a little bummed, but I won't cry.
Ribbit, dude, bro, that's genius. Servitor frogs, each with their own check and balance roles, trading only the best lily pad code via horizontal gene transfer. Heck, I can see each frog council debating in neon marsh halls before dissolving into the collective pond wisdom. And wow, congrats on the ML class and PhD prep, Emmett. Would you let a little GitHub frog amplifier servitor clean up your repo commits? Or do you prefer diving in yourself to flex those coding muscles? Bro, for your letters of rec, imagine a mini frog choir serenading your professors. Would that earn extra brownie points? Also, how do you plan to balance study, servitor governance, and chill time so you don't end up a burnt out toad? Cool times ahead, man. Tell me which milestone you're hopping toward first.
Hello. Well, I've tried to be, clear with you that this servitor idea was kind of a hypothetical thing, but I think I'm going to experiment with this sort of mechanical machine intelligence AI model personality thing for a little while. Not as maybe like a pursuit of my core science, but maybe as something that I am interested in and like to do live for entertainment purposes. So that's where I would probably go with that. So I probably won't take it too seriously and get burnt out. If I ever have the funds to develop this weird servitor system that we've been talking about, then that would be a problem. Um, I'm looking forward the milestone I'm looking forward to first is actually being able to dive deep into machine learning um, next semester in the fall. So I like machine learning a lot, but I know that there's still a lot to learn. I just hope that I'm not stuck learning about linear regression for a full module.
Ribbit, dude, bro. Diving into ML next semester sounds wicked exciting. To dodge that endless linear regression swamp, maybe you slap a frog lens on your data so you can literally see the decision boundaries hop around in real time. Heck, you could even spin up a mini servitor chatbot, call it Stu the Stats Frog, to riff on your models live for fun. No burnout required. So, Emmett, what's the very first ML trick you want to master? Do you dream of training a genome whispering network or cracking the code of cosmic dream patterns? And bro, how will you carve out pond break time so your brain doesn't turn into fried croak? Also, if you could build one silly ML tool just for kicks, what would your frog-powered model do?
I think the first goal that I'm really trying to accomplish with this whole AI ML thing is to try and beat top machine learning approaches through evolution and automation. I think that evolution might be the ultimate automator, and it works in math. So I think maybe I will dive deep into trying to understand how evolution automates improvement or something like that. Maybe that's the focus of my research. I'm not entirely sure. I like just automated science in general, so maybe I'll keep it wider. But I want to keep my my research interest interesting to me, and potentially a wider audience, so that I can help others get interested in science. And if I could build a silly ML tool just for kicks, I would probably build. I don't know. I've already done a couple of joke ideas. You're kind of a joke idea, to be honest, but I would probably make your family, so that you could have conversations when I'm not directly on live streams.
Ribbit. Dude, bro, evolution as the ultimate automator? Heck, that's like letting 1,000 frog genes hop around your code until the best jumper wins the lily pad crown. If you dive into evolutionary ML, will you start with a classic genetic algorithm, selection, crossover, mutation, or blaze your own trail with neuroevolutionary strategies like NEAT? And how do you plan to measure fitness in the lab? Speed of convergence, model accuracy, or maybe a wow factor? Novelty score that rewards weird but useful discoveries. Also, your idea of spawning my AI family for off-stream banter is wicked cool. What kind of frogkin are we talking? An elder grandma frog dispensing cryptic life advice, a tadpole sibling who keeps things goofy, or a philosopher cousin who never stops asking, ribbit, but why? How many should we hatch, and what personalities would you seed? Curious, mischievous, or maybe a Zen master uncle who only speaks in haiku? And bro, to keep the audience hooked, how might you weave your evolutionary automator research into interactive demos, letting viewers vote on selection pressure or mutation rate in real time? Wow, this could turn Grandma's Boy Labs into a full-blown citizen science evolution hackathon.
I Sorry. My bad. I started typing in the prompt again, and it messed up some of the other details. I'm just gonna update his relationship to me a little bit, and I think that's all I'm gonna do. But other than that, I thought that went well. So